Welcome back to Music Milestones YYZ. Scott Turner and
Ivor Hamilton. Scott, how are you feeling after the Olympics, after our big loss on Sunday?
yeah, still down about that. And I think you and I talked briefly about that, and I kind of did what you did. I shut my television off, and I guess I moped a bit.
Oh,
I was
sure.
a little down, to be honest with you, because honestly, I thought they played. They were the better team.
Yes.
I thought they missed a couple of opportunities. I thought they should have won.
I thought
And
they
the other
played an
thing,
incredible game. Yeah.
the other thing I was going to say is this 3-on-3 nonsense. And I hated that. I don't like the shootout in NHL. I think, look at these guys play, the proper hockey game for 3 periods, and all of a sudden you change the game.
Yeah. I mean, I saw that John Cooper mentioned something about that, the Canadian coach, and saying they don't do this in the NHL, but they do it in IHSF or whatever with, or whatever the governing body is with the Olympics. But yeah, it really did change things, and it was unfortunate. I mean, U.S. played a great game too, and it was 1980. The Miracle on Ice was the last time they got a gold medal. So give them one, And I'm sitting there in a bar in Niagara Falls watching the game, and it's full, but it's not packed. Meanwhile, I got a buddy that I used to work with at Universal in Los Angeles, and he's at a bar at 4 a.m., and there must have been 500 people in there. I mean, the atmosphere was just incredible. I did see a few Canadian flags in there at the same time, but It really was a U.S. crowd. And I keep thinking about Connor Hellebuyck, the goalie, the U.S. goalie who was given the U.S. Medal of Freedom or Presidential Medal of Freedom. And I'm like, that guy's never going to have to pay for a drink or never going to have to work again a day in his life for winning that,
That's who. If somehow they can do it, the Leafs got to sign that guy.
I think he'll probably go to a U.S. team. But my other friend sent me a note and says hockey is going to be so boring after that. So last night I turned on the Leafs versus Tampa Bay, and of course they're like they have to win. They have to win these next they got 25 games left and they got to win the next 10 games if they're going to make it to the playoffs. Well, of course they lost the first game, and Austin was a bit of a no-show last night, but he also went to the party of his life on Monday night in Miami too. So anyway,
there you go.
Back to the grind. Here we are.
That being said, it was a fantastic hockey game.
It was a entertainment
great game. It was a great game.
I loved the whole series. I watched every minute of every men's hockey game. It was fantastic, and the women's team played great as well. And it's unfortunate for them, but hey, you know what? Just we move onwards. We had some great hockey on both sides. I mean. And our guys were fantastic. I mean, Nathan McKinnon, I think it will be haunted forever on that open net that he missed. But there you have it. It's Music Milestones YYZ, our weekly sports wrap-up that we have now, Scott, right?
Yeah.
Well, we don't have enough on the show, but...
Yeah, we've got a lot of great milestones to uncover and talk about, and just to go down the memory lane on some of these different concerts and releases. We're looking at the first week of March 1st to 8th. That's why I thought I'd wear, because I guess the time change is coming up and spring is just weeks away. So I thought I'd, wear a local town beer T-shirt to,
very
we'll be
good
on the patio soon, Ivor.
Well, I've got my vintage Motown
I love
shirt
that.
on. One of the best experiences I've ever had in my life was visiting the Motown Museum in Detroit. I don't know.
I want to go there.
You've ever been?
No, I have not. Yeah.
The guided tour is just absolutely phenomenal, and they've left that facility the way it was in the 1960s. So you're standing in the rooms where some of the greatest songs of all time were composed and sung, and the office is still the same, the vending machines are still the same, everything is the same. Cool. And the acoustics in the room are amazing. And they were trying to get a sound, like in Barry Gordy used to bring in all the interns, and the kids asked for their point of view, like what's happening on the street. And they were trying to get this sound when they were recording one of the songs. And one of the intern kids said, you should cut a hole in the ceiling. And so they did. They cut a hole in the ceiling, and bang, they got the Motown sound out of this hole because of the acoustics in the room.
Wow.
Anyway, it's absolutely worth a visit across the border to the Motown Museum. It's an experience of a lifetime. The woman who went with me on that particular day, she goes, I want to get married here. She loved it so much.
That's cool. All right. We're going to just a couple of things before we dig into, we're going to start looking at the 2000s first this week, but we've got a few updates for you. In particular, CFNY, the Spirit of Radio documentary. First of all, we had the first outing was Ground Control, sold out Ground Control in Toronto. What a fantastic night. And just again to Lloyd and Sadeep and all the staff there, and also the crowd, like the crowd that we had out were just so good, from the questions, the Q&A part, which I loved, to the music, and everybody was up dancing in that. And for me, I wasn't at the Chorus Edge screening, so I didn't get to see how the documentary had an audience reaction to different scenes. And I know when we were involved as executive producers with the documentary, and there were parts in it that, we thought, oh, that's kind of funny, but you don't know if that's going to get a reaction or if people, see it the same way when you're just watching it, just a few people in a room.
I mean, having been at both, it was a similar reaction in both rooms, to the humor. I mean, Alan and I was sat beside each other at the premiere, and we looked at it. Goes, I didn't realize that we made a comedy, but there were a few points in there, and I think the one bit of comedy that was in the extended, it wasn't in the TVO one, was the banter back and forth, because nobody could remember how much the Bare Naked Ladies won. The 50,000, 100,000, $1 million, nobody could remember. So
Alan said it was $1 million. It was like nowhere near that. It was 100,000. Yeah.
People looked to Alan and said, "You were wrong, buddy." But anyway, no. But to your point, I mean, I thought the room was just, everybody there it was so amazing, and a lot of people I had seen before. But there were people there. I had somebody come to the event I had not seen. Two people I had not seen in probably over 40 years, who came to that event. And, we're having catch ups, and people go, "Do you remember me?" And I'm like, "We did so-and-so like 30 years ago." And I'm like, "I'm sorry, I don't remember. Please enlighten me." But it was a great time. And I also want to thank Elisa, who did our merch table. And, it was great to see people, jumping in, getting themselves the T-shirt and the tote bags and the new buttons, and buying, I saw a couple of guys that bought the 102.1 band single. And I saw one guy with two, and he goes, "Well, I already had it, but I needed extras. I need backup. I needed one to play, one to display, and I need a spare." And I'm like, "Whatever you want, it's fine." I love it. So anyway. And yeah, I think too, on the music, Sadeep did a great job. We programmed a bunch of stuff, and surprisingly, people reacted very well, because it was a last minute thing when we put in a bunch of old punk videos, from the Old Grey Whistle Test and Top of the Pops, and some other random things that we had found. And I had lots of people say, "I'm so glad that you did that." So we're going to take that with us on the road. We originally we were just going to play a CFNY playlist. Now we're going to show videos before the doc shows at all of the screenings.
Yeah, for sure. And let's just go, and we're going to talk about merch in a second. We have an update on merchandise, because that was a real big hit, and a lot of people have been asking about different pieces and whatnot. But let's first go through, here are the other dates on the tour. Again, this is where you get to see this extended mix of the documentary that nobody has seen. Everybody's seen the 60-minute version. This is extended, and there's some pieces in there that have never been in it before. So here's the dates. If you're up in the Montreal area, March 19th at the BBAM Gallery, and the Q&A session there. And by the way, again, that was the great part. Everybody had great questions, and loved hearing the stories. And there's always new things uncovered each time. Anyway, Ivor himself will be there. I will be there too. Well, some of us may be there. Some of us may be on the screen. Alan Cross and Lindsay Gillespie. And that's again, March 19th at BBAM Gallery, bbamgallery.com for tickets for that. Next up is Oshawa, March 21st at the Gilmour Theatre. The Q&A will be Alan Cross, Ivor Hamilton, Liz Janik, and tickets at biltmoretheatre.com. For Kitchener, Waterloo people, and anybody out in Guelph and Cambridge, this is going to be on the 27th at the Princess Original Cinema, March 27th. The Q&A will be Ivor Hamilton, Liz Janik, David Height, and we just added Gary Stewart for anybody who knows in the region there. The guy behind the Flying Dog, Pearl, Revolution, The Twist, etc. Did a lot of promoting of bands and club stuff over the years. So it's great that Gary's going to be there.
Gary is going to run our Q&A because, Gary brought the road show. Him and his wife, Sue brought the road show to Kitchener first. And then once they got married, they did it together. But, we had so many great times at Super Skate 7, Binghamton Park, University of Waterloo. Gary was so involved in that. And then Gary's been involved in a couple of documentaries in the Kitchener area as well. So he's got a lot to say. He also worked in record retail out there. So he's got lots of stories that he can relate to. And David Height, besides being a CFNY jock, was also a local promoter that partnered with some other people in the town to bring in lots of bands to town too. So
yeah, it's going to be awesome. For tickets for, if you're going up to Waterloo, princesscinemas.com. Ivor's got the rest of the tour.
Yes. So 28th of March, we were at the Playhouse Cinema in Hamilton. I'll be myself on the Q&A, myself, Liz Janik, and Nicholas Pickles, and hometown hero Steve Mahone from Teenage Head. We'll that should be great. And we'll get your tickets at playhousecinema.ca. On the 17th of April, we are taking it up to Stouffville. That's with the 2 F's, Scott. The Q&A on that one will be Alan, myself, and Liz Janik. Plus, we're going to do a full-on video roadshow for that one. So it'll be a long night, a big night. We're going to have lots of fun. I did see something today, by the way. Somebody from Henderson Brewery. Henderson Machinery was a place that I used to was a sponsor of my football team back in the 70s. So I got a little sidetrack. But Henderson Brewery, who's got the Rush beers, posted something going, "Hey, what about beer at these events?" So maybe Henderson will come in and bring some Rush beer to the
yes.
Anyway, so the final one that we have, and this is great. We're going out west. We're going to Vancouver, and we've just confirmed Saturday, April 25th at the Hollywood Theatre. It's right downtown in Vancouver. It's got a great reputation. Myself, Alan, and some of our West Coast friends, left coast friends, Brother Bill, Neil Morrison, Captain Phil, and Scott Eagleson will all be on hand for the Q&A. And, maybe if there's others, Phil's been reaching out. He go, "Hey, did you invite Ogre from Skinny Puppy?" And I said, "Well, we'll see about that. Maybe we'll invite Joey Shithead from DOA, the Pointed Sticks, 5440. We should invite them out. Hey, how about Matthew Good too? Dave Gann and Matthew Good. Why not those guys as well?" So as long as we got room at the theater and don't use up our freebie guest list too much. So anyway,
all right,
going to be great.
Okay. And for further information, you can just follow our socials at Music Milestones YYZ, for we update these daily every time we have something new to add. Now, what's new is merchandise. And for the very first time, we had merchandise available. And this is licensed official CFNY merchandise. And the first in the series, there's going to be some other pieces added as we go down the road here. And if for those that are watching this podcast on YouTube, Ivor is there we are. Ivor's showing you what we call the exploding chicken logo. It's the spirit, with the wings CFNY logo from late 70s, one of the first logos.
Yep. So we've got that. This one proved to be quite popular.
The tote bag, yeah.
The tote bag, yes. So this was originally a busboard promo.
Poster, yeah.
Yeah, busboard poster. So now it's on this tote bag.
Yep.
So that's available. And then, when I was first thinking of doing this, we should do the bumper sticker, right? So, we've got redone the original bumper sticker.
The classic
exactly
black and white.
It was
back
in the 80s. But one of the persons at the merch company said, well, for, the youth of today, these mini stickers, so you can put on your computer, you can put on your fridge, and you can do whatever you need to do with those.
And Yeah, I was going to say that logo design was, probably in use, with the station from, I don't know, it was early 80s through
It was pretty much
86,
think
87. So it
7. I
was,
think it was 87. It changed to the unmodern rock logo that they were using. And then the other thing that we have is the button packs, right? So the button
yeah.
pack is the first one on is the red and yellow one, which is a reproduction of the original sticker, window sticker that the station had when it went on the air as the only one in 1977. So that's sort of like just being redone for that. The one beside that might be a little hard to see says "I'm on top." That came out in 1983 to commemorate us going on the CN Tower at the time.
Yeah.
Then we have the one that's purple with the famous 80s logo on. I think that one came out around 85. I do remember it at the Santa Geets party being handed out. And then pretty much simultaneously was the Roadshow one. Now, there was various Roadshow ones, but this one is the one that we're using when we're doing the road shows on the road. We use the logo this past Friday night. So that's a part of it as well. So that's what we have right now. We are thinking of we had lots of feedback from people that they wanted this on a T-shirt. So
And that's a classic logo we were talking about from the black and white. And by the way, for those that may or may not have noticed, that if in the documentary, both versions of the documentary, the font, specifically the font we used for a bunch of the print.
Well, the entire movie is used. Anybody who's up on screen, we use that font, and that was something that I had mentioned right at the very beginning to the director. It said, let's make sure we're consistent. Use that font, which I think was the right thing to do at the time. Just it sets us apart a little bit, and it's not a hard one to do either.
So two things here. So the merchandise will be available at all of the dates, the coming tour dates that we talked about, but also, and there's breaking news online.
Oh, yes. Two other things. I also would mention too that the merch is going to be as a one-off. I am taking it to David Marsden's show that he is doing this coming week at the Redwood Theatre on the 5th of March in Toronto. So we will have the merch available there as well as all the other dates. But yes, it will be online finally. It will be available through Alan's site, A Journal of Musical Things. What is it? journalofmusicalthings.com, Scott, is that correct?
Let me double check that for you. It is a
journalofmusicalthings.com, I believe. And we're also on cfnydoc.com. Now, we're just as we tape it on the Thursday, the 26th. They're not up yet, but we're hoping to have it all done by this weekend. We're working diligently with our team at SVS, and they know what they're doing down there. So we'll let everybody know once Scott, you'll put out the official notification when everything's up and working on our socials.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's correct for Alan's site. So we're all good. Fantastic. Okay, a lot of other things to talk about, some new concerts and other things, but let's get into some of the music. We're going to start in the 2000s this week. So 2001, 25 years ago, and we're looking at the week of March 1st to 8th, first week in March. Clint Eastwood, Gorillaz. That's the very first Gorillaz track. This is, of course, the guy from Blur, Damon Albarn, that decided to do this side project, and it was animated. The video was cool. The music was cool. It was a great track, and it did very well.
Well, I mean, they're still around today. There's a new record that just came out. They get amazing guests on every record. Paul Simonon from The Clash has been a big part of that band too. I think they're probably as popular as Blur are these days. They're like, people love to go and see them. Their videos are fantastic, and the style of music, they're different enough from everything else out there that it's always intriguing to get a new record from them. And that debut was fantastic.
March 6, 2001, 25 years ago, the first album from Broken Social Scene called Feel Good Lost. I I became a huge fan with the second album, which was
Same here. Yeah, the one that had what's it? Just like
You
the
Forgot It
Sun
in
or
People.
something. Yeah, it had that Just Like the Sun or whatever. That was a fantastic song.
Oh my God, what a great album! What a great album!
Brendan Canning scored the music for our documentary. They have a new record out on the 8th of May. It's called Remember the Humans. I've played a couple of tracks, or the first track. I've played it on my both of my Toronto show and Buffalo show. And they've got this giant tour that they're going out with Stars and Metric, playing major arenas and sheds across North America. One of the last shows on the tour is in Toronto on the 7th of August at the RBC Amphitheater.
Yeah, and again, for those that didn't, you just mentioned it there. Yeah, so Brendan, who was, I guess, one of the founders of Broken Social Scene, did part of the score and the music for the documentary. And, you know, it's funny, I a huge fan, and I've actually never met him. You know, it just, with all what was going on with the doc, a lot of people work from their own studios. Was he there? And I totally...
He was at the premiere. Alan,
at the chorus one.
With him. Yeah, at the chorus.
Yeah, I missed that. Okay, yeah.
And he's now managed by Jake Gold, who manages the Hip. So, you know, this Broken Social Scene are going to be going places with Jake at the controls.
All right. 90s, we're going to do, let's move right into the 90s, moving along. So some milestone releases in the 90s, and let's start off with March 4, 1996, so 30 years ago, Return of the Mac, Mark Morrison. A couple things on this track, because I was just digging up, because I remember this was a big track for us on Energy 108, and that was the UK release, so March 1996. It was not released in North America till January, actually... Yep, January. So we added it at Energy 108 on January 6, 1997, and it was #1 on Energy by the end of February before it had even entered the RPM charts in Canada. It didn't enter until March 3rd in Canada at 92 and peaked at 17 in August. Anyway, the point there being is that we're a big supporter of that track, and obviously, you know, R&B, dance, and hip hop, and everything with Energy 108 ended up being a massive, massive track around the world. Return of the Mac, and on many a dance floors, big song.
He certainly had a past before that, though. Oh my God, you know about that, Scott?
Oh, yeah, a little bit, yes.
He brought a gun on a plane, to starters, and then he actually wrote that song while he was incarcerated. He wrote the single that we're been discussing here.
I'd forgotten that. Yeah,
Mac, and the thing that he did, and I hope that the guys, you know, we like to give people in life a second chance or whatever. I really hope that, you know, the mistakes that he made in life were just when he was young and stupid. But one of the things that he did was he was sentenced to community service. He hired a guy who looked like him and sent him to do the community service. I was like, okay, that's pretty fucking low. But anyway, that was a number of years before he had his hit. But anyway, this song was written while he was in the clink. Probably why you never saw him come and do Canadian tour, because people like that don't get into this country. I remember we had worked. There was a person who worked on my team when I was at Universal, and she's like, "Oh, we're going to bring Slick Rick in for promo." And I'm like, "Really?" And she goes, "Yeah, we're going to have to get a minister's permit for him to come in," which is, you know, something, a special permit you pay a fortune for to get somebody into the country if they got a criminal record. I said, "What was Slick Rick in for?" She goes, "Murder." I'm like, "What are you talking about? They don't let murderers into the country." Like, so anyway.
Jeez. All right. I forgot.
Okay, Scott, you
lost my image in the background there. All right. We just got this new thing going on. TV. Yeah.
He's putting this logo up in the background here, so Matt Kundle doesn't have to put up the logo when he does the final production for YouTube. So Scott's trying to save some bucks here.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt. Yes.
Thank you, Matt. We appreciate it.
From the Sound Off Podcast Network, which we're part of. Appreciate that. So, you know, occasionally, you know, this is obviously a Music Milestones podcast, but occasionally we talk about some films, especially if there's music in it. And I don't think there's much music to talk about other than probably the score for Fargo, but we just thought we'd talk about Fargo, which was released 30 years ago this week. 1996, the Fargo film. And you know, I was thinking about this. We were just doing our
Yeah.
pre-prep for the show, I was thinking about this, and I went and looked at a couple of clips on YouTube, and it occurred to me that I'd never seen the film. So here's the
Really?
funny part. Yeah, I've never seen Fargo. I know it's crazy. But here's what I have seen was there was a TV series. I don't know if you've ever seen any of there was 5 seasons. I've seen 4 of the 5. I got to finish it. I absolutely loved the Fargo TV series. Hilarious.
I never watched it. I went to see the movie when it came out. I thought it was great. And I just realized when we were doing we don't collaborate much on the research. We just do it independently, but that it was a Coen Brothers film, right? So
Yes,
you can't go wrong with a Coen Brothers film. There's been very few Coen Brothers films that I didn't like.
The humor just is what gets to me, and I know it's dark kind of black humor, but it and just that whole Midwest Minnesota accent. I don't know what they call it, but that is. I think at one time after watching 4 seasons of it, I had it pretty nailed. I couldn't do it now, but I had it nailed down pretty good.
I think it was a great point in time. I mean, it was the same thing with the other Coen Brothers movie when Oh Brother. Remember when Oh Brother, Where Art Thou came out, and all that music was it was from the 30s, but people went out to buy it right away. They loved it, So the Coen Brothers, were great at just hitting a touch point with people, and I think they absolutely delivered with Fargo.
I got to go back and watch that movie. Never seen it. It's just funny, those big, films that make such an impact and are critically acclaimed, and you realize, oh my God, I haven't seen that ever.
I know numerous friends of mine, and I mentioned films in there. I never seen that or whatever, but I've the last couple of years, and a bunch of cinemas have shut down. The Beaches Cineplex just shut down, and I would always go and see major movies. And the last year, if I went and saw maybe 5 movies, because I'm not into superhero stuff, and I'm not into a lot of this fantasy stuff, and the other. The other majority of films that are out these days are horror films. And I really don't have, much time for many horror films. I mean, there's a handful that were fantastic, but it's it's overwhelmingly horror films these days, along with Marvel type of films. And it's true. It's not my thing. So go.
You and me both. That's very, very true. Speaking of film, there's another one here. So this is going back to 91 this week at the Doors film, which was a biopic, Val Kilmer, Oliver Stone film. Actually pretty good. I thought it was very good for the time. It certainly, brought a new generation to the Doors audience. Kilmer did a great job in it. The music was exceptionally scored throughout it. I mean, anytime Oliver Stone gets behind a major project too, he's always done a tremendous job. What I was going to mention, maybe because we're talking about film here a little bit, is maybe there's a few docs that you were telling me about. Some new docs are coming out.
Yeah. So there's two major documentaries that are coming. The first one is Iron Maiden, and there's been a few Iron Maiden documentaries out there, and there's actually 2, but this main one is set for, it's called Burning Ambition, comes out the 7th of May. And this is basically a 50-year history of the band, and a lot of exclusive content, lots of interviews. Lars Ulrich's in it, Chuck D's in it. There is a final interview with the original vocalist Paul Di'Anno, who passed away in 2025, and the production team is Malcolm Venmill, who did Churchill at War, and produced by Dominic Freeman, who did Spirits in the Forest. So that's one to look forward to. The other one is the trailer you can see right now, and this is for Billy Preston. It's called That's the Way God Planned It. I don't know where you can view it right now. It's doing kind of like what we're doing with the doc tour, and it's going across America at individual cinemas right now. So I hope at some point that, they find it, it gets onto one of the streaming services or what have you. But for any of you that don't know who Billy Preston was, I mean, he was the 5th Beatle at one point, the last years of the Beatles, he was on, the Abbey Road record and the Let It Be record. And then he was playing with the Stones and He worked with Ray Charles and Mahalia Jackson, Aretha Franklin, Barbara Streisand. He played with Sly Stone and Eric Clapton. Plus, the guy also had, as a solo artist, he had Out of Space, Will It Go Around in Circles,
Circles, dun
Nothing.
dun, dun
And,
dun dun.
and I didn't realize this, but he wrote "You Are So Beautiful" as well, the song that was made popular by Joel Cocker and a number of other people. So
he wrote that. Jeez.
Yeah, he wrote the song, right? So anyway,
well, he can't win them all.
Listen, I
they can't all be gems.
It's not my favorite, but I acknowledge it as being a timeless classic or whatever.
Massive.
And he had a real fall from grace. He wasn't around for that long, and he was very, very young. I mean, he first met the Beatles back in Hamburg in the early '60s. So it wasn't something like he was just parachuted in, but they loved him. You see footage of Billy Preston in the studio with the Beatles, like he's just one of the gang.
That last doc that was done, what's the name of it? It was the sort of uncovered footage that what was that one? Anyway, Billy Preston, when he came into the studio for some of the sessions, it just changed the whole mood and atmosphere. They just have so much respect for him, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so that's cool. Let's the couple of we're in the 90s right now. We're looking at the first week of March. We go back to 96, March 8th. If you saw this show at the Skydome Sky Tent, Red Hot Chili Peppers. Of course, it took a long their story about, for their that line of, growing a career. They've got one of the longest before they hit that level of hitting stadiums, right? I remember seeing the Diamond Show, and I think it might have been the first show was 88, 89. The Red Hot Chili Peppers, and great
or something, or
it was 89 or something. Anyway, just a fantastic live band. Never been a big fan of their music, but they're great to see live.
Yes, overplayed on radio, but
yeah, and if you tune into 102.1 right now, they're probably playing them.
Do you know, here's something for you. I talked Alan into doing this. When Alan left CFNY for a short period, and he was with Indie, do you remember he was with Indie for a short period?
Yeah, well, and he did the IDs too, right?
Right, but he was in part of the consulting or whatever. And I said, Alan, I said, your former radio station killed the Chili Peppers so badly in the market. You guys should not be playing the Chili Peppers on Indie. And he agreed. And for a while, they even had promos on the air saying that we don't play the Chili Peppers. But it seems to be something inbred with, people that worked in radios in the 90s, and all people from the 90s, they just can't do without their Chili Peppers. So eventually they Indie now plays the Chili Peppers the same way The Edge does, and most other rock radio stations across the country.
Yeah,
listen, they are a great band. I've seen them a few times.
But overplayed, I agree.
There's just too much.
Yeah,
too much, and that's what happened to a lot of same thing that happened to Supertramp and Meatloaf and hosts of other bands too.
Yeah,
not the band's fault. It just happened. So
very true. March 4. 1996, Mike Scott of the Waterboys at the Trinity Center.
Yes, and the Waterboys are certainly super active these days. There is two Waterboys bands. There's a band for Europe and a band for North America, and they are doing dates with Steve Earle this year. So they keep on moving, as they say.
Another concert 30 years ago, March 8th, Bob Seger, Maple Leaf Gardens. I've never seen Bob Seger live. Never really on my radar. Although I was just remembering that I think it was when Night Moves came out, and I think I had that recorded on cassette, or I had the cassette for my. It was one of those days where you just get your first car stereo.
Yes,
and it was. This was like 1976, I guess. Night Moves was it? Right?
78 or something. I think it was 78. I think it was a little bit later. But.
I think it was just before I discovered punk. So, I'm listening to little Bob Seger, and it's just a well-produced record that just sounded great in my car stereo. So it was like,
absolutely. I saw him
in Scarborough.
I saw him play twice. I met him a couple of times, and, great crew. No nonsense, everything on stage. I will say, you go to a Bob Seger concert, and if you're not even a fan, they start. You just count them down. You're going, I knew that song, but I forgot about it. I know that song. I knew every song that they played, but I had forgotten about all of them. It was fantastic show. My buddy who was with me at the time, he joked, he goes, well, they haven't exactly got Ariana Grande's production team for costumes on stage, do they? Right. And of course, that's because, everybody in the Seeger band's like jeans and t-shirts and
Yep.
the occasional butt going at the same time. So meat and potatoes show, but they always delivered.
Yeah, for sure. So I had this on the calendar here for that first week in March. It's 1991, so it's 35 years ago. This was a big change in the music industry when the Nielsen Sound Scan came into effect to track the singles. And maybe, Ivor, you could tell this story a little bit on how charts were made
Yeah, I mean,
from radio airplay and sales reports had to be kind of phoned in, and you just sort of trusted them.
Yeah, I mean, it was really unscientific at the time. I mean, it
Right.
would just be, you would call Sam the record man, and it's like, oh, how many Bob Seger records and how many U2 records did you move this week? And if your buddies with the guy down at the store, you're like, oh yeah, we moved 38 copies or whatever, and we moved this amount. So that's how these charts were originally done, and it was the same thing. I mean, I used to do, and it was the same thing with radio, especially stuff that you would call into radio stations at the time in the early days, and it's, oh yeah, it's doing well or whatever, or we featured it, and yeah, it got a couple of spins or whatever, and oh, that's in heavy rotation or whatever, and it's like, depending on their ratings, that's how that the charts would be compiled, for the radio charts, and then for the sales charts, similar, call, install your a sample of retail across the country or whatever, right? So, I mean, it was very, very unscientific, and so when it came to the States, they got it in 1991.
And maybe explain like what SoundScan was. So this was like an electronic device of some kind,
this is like
hooked up to the cash register,
yeah,
right?
this is like the barcode being scanned, right?
Yeah,
So,
right. Okay.
So
yeah.
so it's much less. It's much more accurate. The barcode to of the UPC being scanned and then going into a point of sale system, a master computer that compiles what these sales are. So if you're and the great thing about it is all of a sudden you could tell what was really selling across the country, and you could tell if I've got a breakout out of Hamilton, or I've got a breakout out of Quebec, because they had all of these. So what also happened was they had a network of reporting outlets across the country that were on, so you would find that not everybody was on the system. You had to sign up and pay for it, right?
Yeah.
So you had a bunch of these indie stores. It's like, Records on Wheels, I think, or Sunrise. I think it was Sunrise. We're not going to be a part of that originally. So there were outlets that said they weren't going to be a part of it. It did not happen in Canada until late 1996. So there was like, a 4 or 5 year period where Canada was just doing it the same old way.
Right.
But it became, as soon as it hit the market, I remember we were all like, wow, we can really tell what's happening now, and we can tell who's bullshitting us. Right?
Yeah.
Because that was the big thing, that that you could fudge all these sales and things, and so now it was very became very, very legitimate across the country, and of course it's evolved, and now they have their system in places that they count streams now. They count X amount of streams to get to a gold or platinum status, and what have you. So it's become, it's a must-have tools or whatever. I will say, for a lot of the sort of classic acts that have been around forever, and I look at some of these things when we put together research for this, especially a lot of the Canadian stuff. It's like, doesn't get really played on radio anymore. Doesn't, a lot of the older audience aren't necessarily people who listen to music on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever. They might just listen to it maybe on YouTube Music or something. And up until recently, those streams didn't count. So you would see, for instance, we were going to talk about the Spoons a little bit, the record that came out in, I think it was the 90s, next to no streams in there, right? So then it makes it, even though if these records might be, extremely critically acclaimed or whatever, you're going to have a really difficult time getting people's attention if you're trying to get somebody's attention in another part of the world to say, hey, this was a great Canadian band that sold out, got lots of radio airplay and sold out venues and things. And so the first thing you ask you, show me the streams. And if you don't have the streaming, it makes it difficult. And I found that even difficult when I was at Universal. I dealing with some of the younger people that I worked with, and we were trying to do reissues on some of these, legacy acts that are from the late 60s, early 70s. They don't have any streams. And I go, well, I want to do a reissue of this. Like, well, I don't see any streams, so there's no reason to do it. So anyway, I would say that Nielsen was much more positive than negative, regardless of some of the hindrances that it has today.
Yeah, I guess part of the digital revolution, right?
Absolutely.
For sure. Okay. This song released 35 years ago this week. Here's a sample. All right, admit it, Ivor.
I do admit it. I do admit it. It's a guilty pleasure of mine, and I will tell you, it's a guilty pleasure of mine. It really reminds me of summer. It reminds me of just like hot weather, down by the ocean, by the lake, the poolside, and it also reminds me slightly of the Rascals song "Groovin'." And if you think
you
of
know
that,
what, yes,
yes. And I always think of like on a hot summer day, you listen to "Groovin' by the Rascals, and that "Color Me Bad" came out. I was like, oh man, that reminds me of that song.
I want to sex you up, color me bad. Yeah, you know what? I had thought about that before. That's a good one.
There you go.
I like it. Also, 35 years ago this week, and this was their third album, XL from 808 States, way ahead of their time. And on this album, there's like Bjork sings on it, Bernard Sumner of New Order sings on it. Again, these guys just doing so much ahead of everybody in electronic music.
I love their music. That music was released after I left CFNY, but I really thought they were great. I always made sure I picked up their records, and I proudly own that record in my collection. Do you have that record in your collection, Scott? Is it up on the wall? I do.
I have it on CD, on compact disc, Ivor.
All right. Look at some birthdays. We have one birthday of note this week. Oh, here it is, Ivor. I'll try and shorten this for you next time.
Just ruins the birthday every week we play this song. Honest to God.
Look who turns 80 this week. It's a big one. David Gilmour of Pink Floyd fame turning 80. By the way, for those that were at Ground Control, and David Marsden was a surprise special guest in the Q&A, and he told a little bit of his Pink Floyd stories. And there's a few Pink Floyd stories that David has. And maybe tell the shortened version of that, Ivor.
Well, first of all, Gilmour, Floyd were always a CFNY artist. Besides, there's a lot of crossover artists that got played in CFNY, and them being a massive act on Q107 and Chum FM too. But we always stuck with Gilmour and the Floyd records, and even the Roger Waters ones. But times have changed. Anyway, so David, before he was at CFNY, he was at Chum FM, and before that, he was at Chum in Montreal. He played. Somebody from EMI gave him a test pressing of Dark Side of the Moon and Don't Tell Anybody. And David had petitioned to get Pink Floyd to come to Toronto. They'd actually tried to, talk Michael Cole and what have you, their team there, to try and get Pink Floyd to Toronto, which eventually they did. But David played Pink Floyd, played Dark Side of the Moon 2 weeks before it came out, played it twice in a row. Loved it so much. He goes, once they got through it, he goes, oh, I like this. We'll play it again. He also when Pink Floyd, I believe, when they came to Montreal, he emceed that show, and that would have been, I think, a couple of years earlier. Maybe it might have been on Metal, but also the show that came to Hamilton in 1975 at Ivor Wynne Stadium. He was the MC for that show, and it was funny because Alan did a Pink Floyd at 50 in Hamilton last year at the same venue, the Princess Theatre, that we're doing the upcoming CFNY doc at. And I mentioned later to him, I said, Marsden emceed that show. And he goes, oh, I didn't know that. I forgot. And I was like, okay, we should have mentioned that. So now we are.
Hey, you're going to hear probably that as several stories and many other classic David Marsden stories. He's speaking this coming Thursday, March 5th at the Redwood Theatre. There's still tickets available. And just a side note, David will not be part of any of the other Q&As on the documentary, CFNY documentary tour. So this is your only chance to see him currently at the Redwood Theatre on Thursday, March 5th. David Marsden, part of their speaking series. So
I'm going to be there as well. I'm just going to be
awesome.
There as a fan.
Okay. Couple people who we lost this past, just actually going back a year ago. It's actually a year ago this week that Brian James of The Damned passed away. And also, it was 10 years ago, believe it or not, 10 years ago, George Martin passed away, the classic, Beatles producer. And, we were just talking about the Beatles and Billy Preston there and that. And, this is just a recent memory. Just there's so much to talk about in the Beatles, but just this popped into my mind when I was just making note that George Martin, it's been 10 years. During the Olympics, there was an Airbnb commercial that was played a bazillion times, and they used the audio from Golden Slumbers.
Yes.
And it was always in the background, and it just reminded me, and it's the way Paul sings on that, but also that Abbey Road album, that second side, that whole medley, the production, the arrangement, just that, if I had to narrow it down to a single album or a single side in all of my favorite, Beatles tracks, like it would be side 2 of Abbey Road.
Funny you mentioned that. So when I was over in the UK a few weeks back, my buddy who was on the trip with me, his son came over to join us in London, and his son's an absolute Beatles fanatic. And he's a sort of kid. He's in his 30s, and he just knows stuff inside and out. So we had this debate that it's a debate to me that nobody can win. What's better, Abbey Road or Dark Side of the Moon? Huh?
Wow.
I don't know. There's, what are the misses on Abbey Road? I don't know. Maybe Octopus's Garden. What are the misses on Dark Side of the Moon? I don't think anything. But I could not.
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't put them up against one another and go, what's the better of those two? There is no contest. They're just equally two of the greatest records of all time. That's all I can say. I also mentioned too on the Damned, that there is a new Damned album out, which is dedicated to Brian James, and it's called Not Like Everybody Else. So you might want to check that one out. It's kind of similar to that Rush psychedelic record that they put out about 20 years ago.
Cool. Okay, we continue to look at the milestones. We're going to dig into the 80s here, the first week of March, March 1st to 8th. This week we're looking at, there's a whole bunch that come out in the 80s. We're particularly looking at 86, 40 years ago, and also some 81s, which were 45 years ago. Guitar Town, 40 years ago this week, a Steve Earle album. Yeah. Not a big Steve Earle fan, but there are lots of fans out there.
I absolutely. I mean, I think obviously he hit when Copperhead Road came out, but Canada's always been a real Steve Earle hotbed, and he always comes to market. Like, he's one of these artists who's like, it wouldn't matter if our dollar was down to 50 cents, he would still come across and do dates, which is also, gains a lot of respect. And, the fact that he's, doing these collaborations with the Waterboys too. And so, yeah, he's just, steady as she goes, Steve Earle.
And I'm trying to remember, it's CFY, it's 86, and I don't remember playing this album, but it
I
must have
don't
been
believe
one
we
of those
did.
ones. It's like right on the kind of,
Yeah, we
do we
didn't.
play this or do we not play this, right?
We didn't, but we did play the Copperhead Road record a little bit. So
Right.
I do
Okay.
recall that.
So 40 years ago this week, Burlington's Spoons released Bridges Over Borders. It ended up at 76 of the top 86 of 1986
Right.
on
So
CFN1.
that's not a great number for the Spoons.
Not a great record for them.
And you listen to this record. I went through it before we recorded, and it hit me hard when I was going through the liner notes and stuff too, and I was like, they were managed by Ray Daniels at the time. Ray Daniels is the lifelong manager of Rush.
Right.
Produced by Tom Tremuth, but Tom's got a reputation for being a little more on the prog side. I think this record sounds like Rush light in places. And I was just like, okay, and it's also a record I sit and go through, and I think I might remember one song. The rest of it was a miss for them, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was. They are doing a show, by the way, this coming week, March 6th, at the New Roads Performing Arts Center in Newmarket, the Spoons, and they have on social media released that they are working on a new record. I think they're calling it Nightlife, so there's a new Spoons on the way.
Mm-hmm.
Look forward to that. Okay, Paint Your Wagon from Red Lorry, Yellow Lorry. Try say that 6 times really fast. Red Lorry,
Scott,
Yellow
there's
Lorry.
one of these kind of like obscure alternative bands that you have the T-shirt. I recall. I think we've seen some pictures of you wearing a Red Lorry, Yellow Lorry T-shirt. I played them quite frequently on the Import show. And usually you and I sort of like opposites of things, but this is a band that we both agree on, that we really like a lot.
Yeah, and I remember, I was one of those guys, a little bit like yourself, Ivor, a little bit of a instigator and a little bit of a rebel at times. So I would sometimes, bands that were not getting a lot of support on the station, I would go sometimes buy the T-shirt and wear them in the hallways. And I know you're a big fan. And I know, I don't think they got a lot of regular airplay, lots of on your Import show and that, but I remember being a big fan and, wearing the T-shirt and that. I actually could play a clip of...
You play a clip. I don't know what song you picked, but there's a song. I don't know if you picked the same song. It's an instrumental they had. I thought was killer called Mescal Dance. I was like, man, that song kicks ass.
All right. Well, here's a little sample for those that don't know Red Lorry, Yellow Lorry. This is a little bit what they sound like. You're walking on your hands. So he goes, understand. Just the way he sings. I don't know. I just love
that's good. They again, great little band for the time. So I'll have to get Sudeep to play that the next time we're out doing our shows on the road.
Yeah. There's probably a few people kind of like, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. They did not really, even in the UK, I don't think they had a huge
right. It's like
success.
It's like Catherine Wheel, it's like they were big in Toronto and then they go over to the UK and they were playing in bars about the size of the Rivoli. So
So 40 years ago, Master of Puppets, Metallica came out, their third album. It sits at 97 on Rolling Stone magazine's 500 greatest albums of all time. Just a huge record.
Have you ever seen them play live, Scott?
I have not. And, never been a Metallica fan, but I probably would go to a show and I probably would like it. They were just never my thing.
They were live. They are so good. They're just hands down why they are one of the most enduring top metal bands of all time. Plus they're good people as well. They do it the right thing for rock and roll. I saw them play in Berlin on the opening night of a hockey rink, believe it or not. And it was just something else. And I saw them play at the Air Canada Center, and then they did a one-off at the Opera House, and I was like, oh my God. And we used to have their distribution outside North America in my years at Universal, so I managed to get into the show, and it was just absolutely amazing. I got to meet Lars Ulrich too, and this was at the Berlin show, and they talked about, oh yeah, we're you know, I said, they're coming to, you know, you guys going to come to Canada? He goes, oh, we love coming to Canada, man. We love it there. It's great, great. But I did get some news that I just saw today that they are, and it's going to be in October. So they've signed up to do a residency at the Sphere in Las Vegas.
Wow.
It started in October, and you know they pride themselves. And there's only a handful of bands that get out and do it the way Metallica does it. Like Metallica did a series of shows, like residency shows, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and they did it. They sort of spoof on radio, like No Repeat Weekend. So they were going out like one night they play songs from this album. Next song, they play the song from that album. So they never repeated any
Wow.
songs. So they're going to do this residency in October at the Sphere in Las Vegas and do the same thing and not repeat any songs. Fantastic for fans, a good way to empty your wallet out a lot. But you really, you know, they get, the thing is with Metallica, they always give it all.
Yeah.
You know, if I had my way, if I was booking the Super Bowl, I would have Metallica at a Super Bowl in the next couple of years too, if we could find a way to do that, because they deserve
Yeah.
to do it. Like they're just, you know, one of America's greatest, one of the world's greatest bands. I will also say the time in 1988 when I went to Moscow on that promo thing that to see
Oh,
Big
yeah.
Country in Moscow, and I took a whole bunch of stuff over to trade with locals. And one of the things that I took with me is a bunch of Metallica cassettes. So I wanted to corrupt the kids and give them, you know, a bunch of death metal or metal records. So there's a lot of kids in Moscow that got Metallica cassettes in exchange for my little Russian pins at the time.
Well, let's just for a moment, because we're talking about some live shows, let's just talk about some new concerts announced that have just come our way in the last week here.
Yeah. So a couple of these big festivals that have just been announced. Osheaga, July 31st to August 2nd, out in Jean de Paul Park in Montreal. I would say probably a better lineup than the last 3 or 4 years. It's actually quite good. You know, a lot of things that aren't particularly my taste. The headliners are 21 Pilots, Tate McRae, and Lord on the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Ivor's tips to go and see at Osheaga include Geese, XX, Wet Leg, Wolf Alice. That's on the Friday. The Saturday, Empire, The Sun, Mount Joy, Franz Ferdinand, Viagra Boys, and Bar Italia. And then on Sunday, Mother of Monsters of Men and Major Lazer. Now you move down the highway to Ottawa, and this one is you know, Ottawa Blues Fest is probably, you know, the biggest mishmash of it. It's the farthest thing away from a blues festival anymore. You're lucky if you get 3 or 4 blues acts, but the variety is unbelievable over the 10 days of the festival. And the one thing that you can do with Ottawa Blues Fest that you can't do with any of the other ones that at least that I'm aware of is that your tickets are transferable, or your passes are transferable. So for example, if you want to go to the country night and you love country, but your brother is a metal guy or whatever, you can go and see the country night and send your brother to the rock night or whatever. So
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, headliners on the 9th, Cody Johnson, who's country. On the 10th, the god-awful Limp Bizkit. On the 11th, Hardy, who's also not a great country artist, in my opinion. On the 12th is the Lumineers, so fantastic for that. Conan Gray on the 15th. Lord Euron on the 16th. Now, on that show on the 16th of July, also features on the same bill that night Social Distortion, Billy Bragg, and Los Angeles' Sinceres, who I highly recommend. The 17th of July, and I've just discovered this woman, and I don't like a lot of country, but this woman does great stuff. Her name's Ella Langley, and she's headlining along with Sheryl Crow, Death from Above, which is quite a mix, and Valerie June. On the 18th, the headliners Gwen Stefani. And on the 19th of June, it's the Guess Who with the Sheepdogs and the Toronto Raptors DJs, Four Corners. They're going to be on that bill that night too, so that should be a lot of fun. We move into Ontario on the first week and in July up to Mariposa, the 66th annual Mariposa Festival. Tickets are on sale now. Some of the stuff, there's over 60 artists across 11 stages, and the theme this year is Sounds Like Home. So some of the headliners, Father John Misty, Sarah Harmer, Sharon Van Etten, who's absolutely fantastic, and this obscure band that you and I talked about on the program that none of us had heard of before and had played all these major festivals. St. Paul and the Broken Bones, Scott, are finally coming to market on the on Mariposa. Taj Mahal is also going to be on that bill. So anyway, that's a bit of a rundown of some of the new stuff that these big festivals that have just been announced.
Yeah, and also I don't know if you mentioned the Mumford and Sons are just announced for Rogers Stadium in September. Hey, it feels more and more like this is becoming live in Toronto again, Ivor. It's like old times.
It is, and it's funny. Announced. It's funny on Mumford and Sons. It's like one of those bands that was like they were really, really big, and then they were really quiet for a while, and all of a sudden it's like, holy shit! Like I turn on Sirius XM, they've got a whole channel taken over right now. It's all Mumford and Sons, right? They've given the channel. They've actually taken the spectrum on Sirius XM, turn it into the Mumford channel. I'm at this trivia night at the Rotary Club in St. Catharines this past Saturday night, and all this woman who's talking to me, sitting beside me, is the new Mumford and Sons record. And I'm like, okay. And then they said they're going to play Rogers Stadium, and like Rogers Stadium is 55,000 people, so that is pretty phenomenal.
Huge fans. Yeah, I love the band. So that's cool. Very, very cool. Let's just get back into the 80s. We've got a few other tracks from the 80s here. Where do we leave off here? Oh, yeah. You remember this one? You can look at the menu. You just can't eat. You want her. She wants you. No one ever is to blame.
Little Howard Jones. Howard Jones. Yes.
Yeah, this was when the remix came out, because the album version was so different. It's so like just low key, and then they just added some more instrumentation, and they just made it a prettier track and became a massive, massive hit.
I mean, I think Howard Jones, I think, was one of those records that was only exclusive on CFNY for about 5 minutes. It was like he made good crossover adult contemporary records that work anywhere, right? And but he had a lot of fans. He had a lot of young fans. I do remember when we used to, we were out on these road shows at high schools, we used to get asked for his music all the time. He did visit CFNY once that I recall, and I do remember this record company, Warner Music, and this guy Roger Desjardins. He was always the publicity guy, and he was always the guy. If you were an artist on Warner Music, Roger is going to be with the artist. So he knew all these artists. They all love this guy. He's no longer with us anymore.
I know. I wish he was, because his stories, oh man.
And you hear the stories of back in the day when, the labels would always take the music people to their shows, or they would come to the radio station, they'd take you out for lunch. And, so you were well fed back in those days. But I remember Warner brought Howard Jones up to Brampton, and we went to, without a doubt, and I can't remember the name of it. I tried to look it up today, but was Brampton's premier 5-star restaurant for lunch. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to cost us hundreds and hundreds of dollars for lunch. I just wasn't used to that I think I was like 25 years old at the time. So I was, used to getting a cheeseburger on the Tuesday special at Sonny's instead of these lunches. So.
Sonny's, yeah. I remember, and we had the doc screening, the extended mix at Ground Control, and Spanky's was mentioned.
Yes.
And everybody's like, oh, Spanky's.
I know. I couldn't believe it. Spanky's. And I mean, I love Spanky's for when we were part of the staff, because, if they had a show down there, all you had to do was go down the back door and bang, you were standing on the stage. So you always got to sneak into Spanky's. And then if we were recording an act there, which happened frequently, no question. Oh yeah, I'm part of the crew. We're working on the recording upstairs, just doing some checks or whatever. Nobody ever said anything.
Oh man, yeah, great memories. Kid Creole played 40 years ago this week at the concert hall. I'd seen Kid Creole a couple of times. I think it was RPM once, but just a great live band.
I never saw them at the concert hall. I think I did see the RPM show, and I saw them up in Kitchener, and I can't remember the name of the club that was up there. It was kind of a short-lived club. It was the Ballinger brothers had the club up there. Maybe you remember, Scott, but saw them up there, got to meet, got the kid, got to meet Cody Monday, got to meet the girls. They were great people. And to this day, Scott, the CRTC could come in and shut CFNY down for playing it as CanCon back in the day. But I understand a bunch of other radio stations played it as CanCon because Cody, Kid Creole had heard of Montreal. I don't know what the exact circumstances were, but he had some connection to Montreal, and people were like, oh, that's Canadian content.
Yeah, it's some weird thing. Yeah, that he had lunch in Montreal before, on his way to New York to record the album. I don't know.
You could get away with it back in those days.
Oh,
the
man.
furthest thing from Canadian content was Kid Creole. So.
All right, so we'll finish up some of the 80s here. We're going back 45 years to 81 this week, first week of March. Mind of a Toy from Visage released. Also, same week, the first album from Spandau Ballet, Journeys to Glory.
Those were two big records for us, both of those records.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like big records. And, the Visage record was basically Ultravox and Magazine backing Steve Strange on that record. Those were the musicians on those records. And the Spandau record, to cut a long story short, big dance floor filler for us. Also, Freeze was a big record for us.
Yeah. And there's a kind of intersection between, Visage, Spandau Ballet, and all the new romantic thing going on. And it was just such a cool time. Some great club records, too. That album, Journeys to Glory, ended up at 30 on the CFNY year-end chart, the best of 81. Also, Ceremony. This is the very first single for New Order, came out 45 years ago this week. And even though I think they recorded it as a last track with Joy Division, or one of the last sessions, but that it came out, they kind of reworked it. I think it's like 3, 4, 5 versions of Ceremony.
I've got several versions in my collection, but I have to say that for me, I took the phone call.
Track.
I took the phone call from Gary Topp when he told me that the Joy Division show at the Edge was canceled because of Ian Curtis.
Yeah.
And I couldn't wait when I heard that they were going to carry on as New Order. I could not wait for this record. And I was so pleased when that single, when I got my hands on that single. To this day, it's a song, we talk quite frequently on this program about all the records we're sick of. You could play this record to me 10,000 times and I would never get sick of it. I think it's one of the greatest songs of all time. I think it's amazing.
I agree. Didn't you guys play it at Ground Control, I think? Did I hear Ceremony?
I don't know if maybe Sudeep did. I don't know. It was kind of like what I did on that night was, we had the pre-show with all the videos, all the punk rock videos and things. And there was a Joy Division track in there, but and then I had given Sudeep, our DJ, here's the first 12 to 15 songs. Play these because I knew they were all big roadshow floor fillers from the 80s. And I said, as soon as that's finished, have at it, do whatever you want. Just go and do it. Which he went straight into Information Society, which, whatever. Wouldn't have been my choice, but I said, do what you want. So that's what he did. But he probably did play Ceremony.
Yeah, first week of March, 1981, 45 years ago. There's a lot of releases. Here's one that'll spark a memory. It's Lena Lovitch, New Toy. When I was listening to that this morning, I was like, boy, what does that remind me of? And then I'm like, oh, yeah, this song.
See, that's another guilty pleasure. That song.
O-E-O. It's that O-E-O-E-O, Jungle Love. Remember
That's
the
what
time?
we play that on the road show all the time too, right?
I think so, yeah.
We play that song on the road show, and we play Vanity 6 too, because Marty and I
Just
love
for the video.
We love the chicks in that band, like, ooh, they're so hot. But the time one, man, it was like, now Jesse, now Jerome, right? It was so much fun, right? People would lose their shit on the dance floor when you'd play that song.
Great track. Great track. By the way, New Toy, Elena Lovitch, was written by Thomas Dolby.
Yes.
Did you know?
Yes,
Yeah.
I did.
Very
know.
cool.
And so when she played, she was on the bill last summer with Simple Minds and Soft Cell, and that was the best received song of her, whatever. She did 5 songs or 4 songs. I mean, she was on for all of like 15 to 20 minutes. People would have, most people at that show thought she was better than Soft Cell. And people were talking about, gee, I really hope she comes back and does standalone shows, because people would go and see her again.
Agreed. Also, We Don't Need This Fascist Groove Thing from Heaven 17 came out the same week. Yeah, it's just these weeks with all these just great tracks coming out in the same week. What a great track. Very big
song.
CFNY track. Yeah.
I mean, I think, outside of that, Let Me Go, but those were kind of the 2 biggest ones that we had from them. And I know we kind of skipped over this one, the New Music album, Anywhere, which is just their second record. They couple of great songs, World of Water, While You Wait, Changing Minds. One of those ones that, Scott, you put it on, you listen to it and go, yeah, I remember these. You probably forget them now, but Tony Mansfield, genius producer, they made 3 fantastic records.
Yeah. New Music. Spelt.
M-U-S-I-K.
K, music with a K.
Yes.
Boomtown Rats, a couple of live shows this week. In 81, Boomtown Rats were at Maple Leaf Gardens, and Bauhaus played the very first time in Toronto was at the Edge. Yes. I did not see them till the next time, which was Larry's Hideaway. I would have liked to have seen them at the Edge.
But like you, Scott, I didn't see them because the Edge was so full, and it had the worst sight lines in there. So wherever I was sitting that night, I couldn't see them. I remember seeing Peter Murphy jump out a couple of times, but I was like, I can't see the band. It was just, I think it held 100 people.
Well, yeah. And the Edge was basically a house. So it's like you're in the bedroom, you're in the living room, you're in the kitchen. It's like, and the band's playing in the bathroom.
For all the legend of what it was not a good place to see shows.
Agreed. Unless you're on the window ledge, was a good spot. On that window ledge there, that's a good view. But I did see him at Larry's, and I was so happy that I got to see Bauhaus.
Great.
70s. We're going to finish off with the 70s. I didn't start my stopwatch. I have no idea how long we are.
I don't know. We're 3 hours and 50 minutes. It's the box set edition, everybody.
It is, yes. Okay, we've just got a few more to finish up, everybody. So hang in there. We're just going to roll through the 70s here. Okay, let's start 50 years ago, 1976. Oh my God, 1976 was 50 years ago. Good God. I believe this was the first Pat Metheny album, Bright Size Life. And this one ended up being put into the Library of Congress and selected for the National Recording Registry. So it's, there's these certain albums that are considered so iconic that they are put into this this sort of vault of greatness.
Yeah. Well, I have fond memories of Pat Metheny being something that used to get played during the daytime. And when our tenure at CFNY in the early days, it was like a Jim Reed, James Scott special. Those guys would always play Pat Metheny. I think Brad McNally was a fan of them as well. I mean, he was a CFNY staple. The records weren't up the top of our list, but people loved hearing Pat Metheny records.
And I think that's where I discovered in hearing the album As Falls Wichita, So Falls Wichita Falls, which is 81. And I bought that record, hearing it on CFNY, and it's still one of my favorite albums. Just love it.
Yep.
Shout it out loud. Kiss 50 years ago. Yes.
From the Destroyer record, right? So Kiss Destroyer. It's funny, I look back on my high school years, and how, we talked about in high school, you get little cliques of people at your school, right? You had the punk rockers, and you had the rock guys or whatever, the stoner guys, right? And so at my high school, I remember there was a couple of guys, and they were the guys that had the jean jackets,
Yep.
hair down to their asses, like out smoking butts out in the parking lot, probably usually, sneaking the beers and stuff. And there was this one guy, and he was such a die-hard fucking Kiss guy, right? Like he was gonna die going to heaven with Gene and Ace.
Mm-hmm.
And so at my high school reunion, years later, I see the guy, right? I saw him at the 25th anniversary of our high school reunion, and it was like, Dave, great to see you now. And it's like, you still rocking. And he goes, oh, well, I still not as much as I used to. And I'm like, well, I'm just curious, what are you up to now? And he goes, I'm a high school principal. I was like, oh, okay, right. So
that's great. Then we just called them rockers. There was all these little cliques and these tribes. Yeah.
And then at my 50th, he was there again at the high school 50th, and there was somebody dropped off one of the panels, like, because I'm Mr. Organization of panels at high school reunions, just like we are in the doc thing. And I was like, somebody dropped out last second, Dave, please come up on stage. And he didn't miss a beat. So this guy went from being Mr. Loser Rocker, from being like an absolute fantastic educators and a responsible citizen. So there's hope for you yet, people. You can still love your rock and break out of it.
That's great. Same week, TNT, talking about classic rock tracks, TNT, AC/DC came out, and who, by the way, are playing Rogers Stadium in September.
Yeah, I mean, God, that High Voltage record, amazing. And I look today, go and look at the video for A Long Way to the Top if you want to rock and roll. That they did it for like $300 on a little flatbed in Australia, and I think it's Sydney or Adelaide or whatever. And it's so great. And they never ended up, after Bon Scott passed away, they never played it live again out of respect for him. And they also said it was bloody hard to play the bagpipes too. So, but yeah, loved AC/DC, still do. I might go to that show in September. It's funny, it's like when they played at the Sky Dome, it was no problem. A bunch of friends of mine went, yeah, it's great, we'll go see it there. And then they played again after that at Downsview Park before the stadium's gone. Not one of my friends went to it because, well, I'm not going to stand in a field to watch AC/DC. How am I going to get something to eat? How am I going to sit down? Where am I going to park? Right. And so it's been the same thing with Rogers Stadium, that I know a lot of people go, I'm not going to go, especially for these classic acts. I'm not going to go. It's terrible to park. And well, I went to Oasis last year. I had no problem getting in. I had no problem getting out. I paid for my tickets, so I'm not like blowing smoke because I got free tickets and I'm friends with Joey Scolari. It's just, it's not a bad experience. And, if you're an AC/DC fan, you should go.
Yeah, I didn't mind it either. Hang on, let me shut my phone off. There we are. So this is interesting one we dug up, and it was the first time, this is March 5th, 1971, Stairway to Heaven, Led Zeppelin, performed live for the very first time. Remember, the album's not out until that fall. Mm-hmm. And I looked this up and to see, okay, when did they tour? Did they play Toronto? When was the first time Toronto got to hear Stairway to Heaven live? And it was Zeppelin played in, I think it was September or October, as I dug
73. Was it 73 that they played, or 71 or something?
71, yeah. So
71.
that fall, Maple Leaf Gardens show, and it's, I believe it's September. Anyway, the album's not out till November, and Led Zeppelin play like 2 new songs, and one of the songs they played live was Stairway to Heaven. So just imagine this crowd hearing this song for the very first time, not knowing what it was and the significance of it.
Well, that was pretty common back in those days, right? Because they didn't, there was no internet. There's no way for people to, other than somebody smuggling a tape deck in, that was few and far between, and that was pretty tightly controlled back then. So that was a big thing. Like, they'd road test these songs. I mean, Pink Floyd, when they did that show in Hamilton, half of the show, the very first half of the show, was all unreleased material that would end up a couple of years later on Wish You Were Here. So Led Zeppelin going out and playing that ahead of the game was not uncommon. I found out myself that I went, and when I saw Thin Lizzy play for the first time, it was 6 months ahead of, they played The Boys Are Back in Town for the first time, and it was 6 months ahead of the album being released. I had
Very
no
cool.
idea at the time. I was like, I don't know. You saw Thin Lizzy play. I didn't know. It's like, but you know, again on Stairway to Heaven. I mean, I'm sure that there would be a bit of a buzz going on that one, and you know, Robert Plant being such a sex symbol too, right? He was at that time. He was probably one of the most desirable men for the ladies on the planet, and I know that Led Zeppelin had countless conquests on their road trips.
Yes, that's been well documented.
I heard it firsthand, believe it or not. So
Okay, love it.
From somebody who was very close to the Led Zeppelin camp. He said they were on a plane flight from London to Los Angeles, and they decided that they would figure out their conquests. And he said that Robert said, "Oh, about 650, I think." And I was like,
Man.
pretty good.
Wow. Okay, and so to wrap it up for the 70s, it was 55 years ago this week, March 8th, 1971. Layla by Derek and the Dominoes is released. Of course, this goes on to become one of the greatest rock and roll songs of all time. You know, it's just looking for the latest, you know, and the one thing about the Rolling Stone, you know, greatest songs of all time, they every 3, 4, or 5 years, they update it and kind of try to bring it into perspective over time. So it's interesting that the most recent update, which was I think 2020, it sat at 224 on the 500 greatest songs of all time, and I think it was in for many, many, many years. It was like in the top 5 or top 10.
So it's dropped to the 200s now.
Yes.
Well,
Isn't that something?
That doesn't seem right to me.
Yeah, I know, and I was thinking the same thing. Even though I thought, you know, talking about overplayed, like come on, and classic rock radio and that, like just played too many times. But how does it drop to the 200s?
Yeah, how does something like that drop? I mean, where's, you know, Won't Get Fooled Again? I don't know. Like, where's Hey Jude? Like, I don't know. Like, it's
well, they got it there. Yeah, and we could have a whole other podcast just about this list, because I think that 2020 list, or whenever the last update was, a lot of controversy because they really shook it up. And I think you know, somebody somewhere decided we gotta, you know, some of these tracks are really old. We got to bring in some new stuff.
Sure,
I
get that, but
yeah, they did shake up the foundations of what you would normally have considered, you know, the best of the best. But anyway, that's the 70s. I thought we'd just finish off this week. Did we miss anything on I just wanted to mention a couple of shows, live shows this week. We did mention David Marsden.
We should mention a couple.
March 5th. I wanted to mention also same night, Boy George and Culture Club are at the OLG Fallsview. Spoons, I mentioned earlier, March 6th at the New Roads Performing Arts Center in Newmarket. And did I miss anything?
No, I think you got it. I have some picks that we can do that in the next couple of weeks. I kind of have Ivor's picks for this summer, and
okay,
you should actually go through that and pick a few things that go. I think Scott wants to go and see, you know, whatever that might be.
Sure. Okay, we can do that. All right. I have no idea how long this episode was, so our apologies if we went a little bit long. It was the box set version again.
Exactly.
We're old, so we don't keep track of time. We don't know what day of the week it is sometimes.
Super deluxe edition with Scott and Ivor of Music Milestones YYZ.
Yeah, so follow us on our socials, Music Milestones YYZ, Facebook, on Instagram, or Music Milestones YYZ Pod. And we're no longer on Threads. Don't ask me about Threads. That's a long story, but they banned us forever. I don't know why. We are on Blue Sky. Look for us there. Also, our website is musicmilestonesyyz.com. And each week, Ivor is beautiful. He works this playlist together on all the tracks we talk about on the podcast. He puts a really nice companion playlist together. So you can look for those on Spotify, YouTube Music, Tidal, and Deezer. And also, as you heard, CFNY official exclusive merchandise is now available at cfnydoc.com and also at Alan's website, a journalofmusicalthings.com. And Ivor, just tell us about your weekly radio shows.
Yes, sir. I am on nythespirit.com. My first spin is Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock and on 3 times after that. And you can catch me in Buffalo on BTPM The Bridge. The Teardown airs at 10 p.m. every Sunday night, and none of those shows overlap. We occasionally play the same artist, but we try not to play the same songs, so it's a completely different show each week. We have a lot of fun doing that. Freeform as always.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Music Milestones YYZ is part of the Sound Off Podcast Network. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next week.